Hi guys, we are back and we
Our daily reading, Gods and Heroes, Mythology Around the World. If you like this video,
subscribe, comments, all that.
subscribe,
Smash the
comment,
like.
smash that like button. So this will try to be a daily reading.
Yes.
We'll give it a shot. We have no idea how it's going to work, but we'll see how it works.
The reason why we put, what is it? Anansi?
Anansi,
yeah. Is because that's the chapter we're on.
That's a chapter.
So, yeah.
And this is a god from a tradition is West African, also known as Anansi, Kwaku Anansi, or Aunt Nancy. So here we go. And they're quick chapters, maybe 10 minutes long or so. I guess each one. The next one will be Aphrodite, so if you want to hear that one. But here we go. The world is full of Anansi stories. They seem to have originated among the Ashanti people in Ghana, but have since spread throughout West Africa and the Caribbean and the Americas. As the storytellers have changed, so have the stories, and sometimes even Anansi himself. Most radically in the southern United States, where Anansi became the female Aunt Nancy. I have an Aunt Nancy. Yeah. But Anansi's personality has remained consistent. He is lazy, dishonest, and very full of himself. He's also remarkably clever, often finding ways around seemingly impossible challenges. He sneaks and steals and loves a good scheme. He once even faked his own death to score some free food. It's pretty slick, right?
Wait, how would he do that though?
I don't know. He once even faked his own death to score some free food. Maybe people brought food to, like when here in America when they have tradition of people dying, what they do is after the death, people bring a lot of food so everybody can eat. Who came to the burial or the remembrance or something. We did that with my mom. After her remembrance, we all ate, sat down and ate, and basically rejoiced in the person and talked about the person and the good times and everything like that. It's a celebration.
Do they still do it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people do. Yeah, you want to feed all those people who came to, celebrate the passing of a loved one. Even though it's a sad moment, it's also a celebration into another life, right?
Yeah.
Into another realm. Some people think.
Yeah, that's what believers.
Some people, yeah. Lots of gods, and we're here to talk about it. We're here to talk about all the gods. But not all of his tricks are bad. In some stories, he just creates the world. In others, he creates people. Sometimes he runs messages between the sky god and the people of Earth. And besides, some of Anansi's targets had it coming. So I guess some of his targets, some of the people who he's cursed or he's attacked, has had it coming. Meaning, I guess they were being bad as well. So he wanted to make sure that they deserved what they, I guess he felt because he's a god, he's making judgment on people who
Is
done bad.
Anansi a god or a hero?
He would be a god, right? Yeah. A spider, yeah. Anansi.
Spider?
Yeah, well, he looks like a spider. He looks like he's, yeah. Right. Anansi and the Secret Thing. Let's hear about this. And I hope I'm pronouncing this right. No disrespect to anyone's particular god, a person, or a thing that, something they believe in, because these things are going to be all from all different parts of the world.
From our religion now.
Right. It's different. Yeah. Anansi knew he was clever, and he liked to make sure everyone else knew it too. He bragged about it to anyone who would listen. One day, he even bragged that he was smarter than the sky god. In this version, called Wolbari, when Wolbari heard, he decided to teach Anansi a lesson. He summoned Anansi and told him to go down to earth and bring him a certain thing. When Anansi asked what he wanted, brought back, Woolbury replied that if Anansi was so clever, he should already know. What could Anansi do? He headed down to Earth, but he didn't start searching for the thing, not right away, that is. First, he found some birds and took some of their feathers. Then, safely disguised, he sneaked back up to heaven. When Woolbury saw Anansi covered in feathers, he thought it was a new sort of bird. So here he's being sneaky, right? Anansi. And he asked all the other animals what it was called. None of the animals knew, but one suggested that Anansi might. Woolbury told them he had sent Anansi away for a thing. The animals asked what the thing was, and Woolbury said he hadn't told Anansi, but he was supposed to return with the sun, the moon, and darkness. While the animals laughed at Woolbury's trick, Anansi slipped away and headed back to Earth. So he's being sneaky, right? Really sneaky. He soon returned with a tightly tied bag. Once everyone was gathered together, he opened it in triumph. First, he pulled out darkness, and no one could see anything. Next, he pulled out the moon, and people could see a little. Finally, he pulled out the sun, and everyone who wasn't blinking at the time went blind from the brightness. Oh, a pretty mean trick, I think. One of Anansi in all the stories. One of Anansi's greatest powers. You don't look straight at the sun.
Yeah.
No, why? Why would you do that?
Didn't Trump look straight at the sun for 10 minutes? That's what my friends told me. I don't know.
No, that's fine. You hear things. I would say it's fake news.
Is this?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not
you
sure.
You listen to the news all the time because you really know.
Well, I like listening to all different types of news too.
Yeah.
I'm not sold on one or the other. I need to trust them all, but verify them all, right? So I don't think it was quite 10 minutes. I think he stared up at it for a moment. And it wasn't, and I think it wasn't the sun. It was something to do with the moon passing over the sun or something. You're not supposed to stare up straight. I don't know.
Isn't that the eclipse?
The eclipse. Yep. I think you're right. So, I mean, that's. I would suggest not to. If I was President Trump's father, I would say, son, don't stare up at the sky.
Yeah. Like, don't stare at the eclipse.
Yeah. If I was his son, I'd say, don't stare at the sun. So, Anansi in all the stories, his greatest power is his ability to tell stories, which is a fine ability to do, is to tell a story, which is what we're doing. It's telling stories on our streams. But that power wasn't always his. According to one myth, it originally belonged to the sky god Nayam. Nayami or Nayam. Anansi asked to buy it from him, but Nayami said Anansi could never afford something so valuable. But Anansi kept pestering him until finally Nayami named a price. The python, the hornets, the leopard, and the fairy. Anansi went back home and talked it over with his wife, who told him what to do. First, Anansi found a stick and some vines and walked along a stream until he found the python. He told the python that he and his wife had been arguing about how long the python was, and he asked if he could use the stick to measure it. The python agreed and straightened itself out next to the stick. As soon as it did, Anansi grabbed the vines, tied the python up, and delivered his python on a stick to Nayami. So we caught the python, right? Next, Anansi filled a gourd full of water, found the hornets, sneaked up and splashed water all over them. Then which is pretty dangerous, right? Because they're going to get mad. Then he yelled that it was raining and suggested the hornets all get inside the gourd to be safe. When they did, he slammed the lid shut and delivered the hornet-filled gourd to Naomi. Miami. Then Anansi skittered over to where the leopard liked to hang out. He dug a deep hole and covered it with sticks and leaves. Sure enough, the leopard walked past and fell into the trap, and Anansi peered at the edge to offer his help. He handed down a ladder, but as soon as the leopard reached the top, Anansi slashed him with a knife and dragged him up to Naomi. There are lots of versions. Now this is a little offside here. There are
Another
lots.
spider slashing what is it?
A leopard.
Leopard with a knife. I mean, how could a spider?
He might be a pretty thrifty spider. Smart spider, you know. And, you know, it's like a god spider, right? There are lots of versions of the story of Anansi gaining, buying, or stealing the power of storytelling. In one, he sells his own mother. Now that's something. Selling your own mom. Wow. He is slick. Huh? What do you think of that?
That's weird and dumb and...
You wouldn't want to sell your mom, would you? But I guess he must have had a reason. I don't know what it is. And remember, these are tales, stories that have been passed down for generations, multiple generations, maybe thousands and thousands of years. For the fairy, now he has to catch a fairy, Anansi carved the little doll and covered it in sticky resin. Then he stuck some mashed yams in its hands and hung it from a tree like a puppet. Soon a fairy appeared and asked the puppet if she could have some of the yams. Anansi made yams is like a potato, yummy, like a sweet potato, you know, so you can bake them or put them on a fire. They taste really good. I think they're filled with all kinds of nutrients too. Soon a fairy appeared and asked the puppet if she could have some of the yams. Anansi made the doll nod. The fairy ate the yams and thanked the doll, but the doll stayed rudely silent. So the fairy slapped it.
What the?
That's Jax jumping back in from outside. And her hand stuck to the resin. Anansi took the fairy to Naomi. When Anansi had brought everything Naomi had demanded, Naomi had no choice but to give Anansi the ability to tell stories. From then on, they were called spider stories. Now, what do we got? Next one is Aphrodite. Now, right here we have which sky god? The vast majority of African religions feature a supreme being, an all-powerful creator god who dwells in the sky. His name varies with the language and the culture. He is Malungo in East Africa, Liza in Central Africa, Nyambi in the southern tropics, and Nyami in Woolbury, Negawo, Mawu, and Clorin in West Africa, just to name a few. Some are different gods, and some are different names for the same god, and sometimes it can be hard to tell the difference. That's why Anansi's stories from different regions give the supreme being different names. So that was our second chapter from our Gods and Heroes book, right? Our first story, we'll have to rearrange the title and everything from the last one we wrote, or read, would be Amaterasu, and she is a Japanese Shinto, and her home is the high celestial plane, and also known as, the great divinity illuminating heaven. So that's kind of cool. So please stay tuned. Smash that like button, subscribe, share, right? You can share on Facebook if you want. And we don't have a Facebook account. No, we don't. But we have a YouTube
Twitter,
and Twitter, Twitch. We haven't used yet, and we'll be reading these on a nightly basis, 15, 17 nights a month. We'll try. And our next story is Aphrodite, and probably tomorrow. And thank you, everybody.
Yep.
Say good night.
Good night this is a new year, actually.
Happy New Year, right?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. 2019.
So we will see you next year.
We'll see you next year.